South American silver, needed by the Spanish government to facilitate a policy of betrayal. If she was accepted as a prize, it could make a great deal of money for all attending the dinner. It was impossible not to compare the rewards with that which had been awarded to the frigate Active, in company with the sloop Favourite in the year 62. They had taken the Spanish vessel Hermione, only to find in her holds bags of gold dollars and ingots of silver. This, and the ship cannon and head money together, led to the largest payout of prize money in the history of King George's navy. In the case of both captains, who were entitled to a 3/8 share of the proceeds of the recent capture, it would render them seriously rich, though Langholm would be obliged to pass on 1/8 to the commanding admiral. John Pearce, sailing under Admiralty orders, had no such requirement. Their inferior officers and midshipmen, also well rewarded, could go from impecunious lieutenants to sought-after fellows in the article of matrimony, while the crew, from warrants down to the meanest waster, could look forward to sums that would match years of pay. Both captains knew it would be necessary to manage expectations, there being a process in such matters which could take years to reach a conclusion. Prize courts could be fickle and pernickety, while there were any number of people dipping their beaks into the trough along the way, assessors, lawyers, and, not least, the agents acting on their behalf, who would extract a high commission. It was also the case for the common seamen. They were signed up for the duration, and no amount of prize money would alter this. "Gentlemen," Langholm said as he got to his feet, something which attested to both his youthful appearance, allied to his lack of inches, "the King." A toast, which was mandatory, also served as an indication that the gathering was nearly at an end. So once the monarch had been acknowledged and praised, the conversation flagged, and the well-wined guests slowly made moves to disperse, no doubt still discussing how they would spend their windfall. It required no obvious signal from Langholm to John Pearce that he should hold back, with the latter being naturally curious as to what had been whispered in his colleague's ear. "I am bound to say," was the reply when told, "I have a limited amount of faith in Mr. Williams." In imparting this, John Pearce saw no need to elaborate, to say the master of the HMS Hazard on one previous occasion had come up seriously short in his weather predictions. Langholm's response was to insist that the opinion he held on his man, McAllister, was the polar opposite. He trusted him absolutely. He then invited Pearce to look at the barometer, pointing out the mercury had fallen considerably. "So I suggest we take a look at Mr. McAllister's troubling sky ourselves." The words were accompanied by a wry smile. This implied, Pearce thought, it would be more for appearance than any desire to question those held to be expert or the mercury reading just taken. Coming on deck, the change in the weather was many times more obvious than it had been when seated in the great cabin, where the only evidence had been an increase in the rocking motion. The warm wind, previously steady, was now much stronger and gusting, tugging at both their coats and the anchor cables, at its peak requiring a hand-hold onto their hats. The sun, previously bright in a clear sky, now had a watery quality, it being partly obscured by haze. But it was what lay far out to sea which presaged a severe deterioration. High banks of cloud, in which the darker tumult of activity was obvious even at a distance. Also, outside the cove in which they were anchored, the increasingly disturbed sea state was palpable, while the run of the waves and their increasing height raised questions as to the safety of their present anchorage. The outer part of Pontevedra Bay was protected from an easterly gale by the island of Ons, but it was dangerously open to anything approaching from the southwest, the quarter from which the menace threatened. It was natural for Pearce to cast an eye over their capture, which lay alongside Lively, and take in once more the damage inflicted on the Spanish frigate by Hazard's cannon. He then had good cause to wonder if the repairs so far undertaken, work which was continuing as he watched, would be sufficient to stand, out in open water, the kind of blow which appeared to be in the offing. The massive damage to the stern of the Santa Leocadia was easy to hide.